We are joined now by Erin Perrine. She is in the White House. She is actually traveling as we speak. Erin, I am so fired up about so many different things that are going on right now. But first of all, I appreciate you coming on with me. And I want to start with this because I know you're, if I remember correctly, a big Buffalo Bills fan.
I am.
Yeah. So you finally get Tom Brady out of the AFC East. He moves on down to Tampa Bay. And then you're like, oh, it's the Bills. We're going to win the division. Look out, New England. We're finally going to get revenge on you. And then, boom, Bill Belichick goes and gets Cam Newton. What was your reaction when you saw that?
I mean, that's great for Bill Belichick. That's great for the Patriots. Congratulations on Cam Newton. But I still feel really good about where the Bills are right now. I mean, you've got Josh Allen. You've got Stephon Diggs. We've been building the program. We've been building the team. I think we're still in a really good place to finally win. Even Cam Newton, Tom Brady, and pandemic aside, I really actually think the Bills could do this. But I am a Bills fan, so I am resigned to the fact that it may very likely implode in our faces anyways.
So we've got MLS coming back. It seems like Major League Baseball, the NBA, the hockey, everything is coming back. The NFL is trying to work towards coming back. I know you work in the White House, and we've had you on the show before, and people loved it last time, so thank you for making the time, given all the busyness going on. But how important is sports coming back to returning a sense of normalcy to the country?
Yeah, we touched on this the last time we spoke as well. I think that sports coming back is so hugely important to the country as a whole, to our ability to feel like we're moving forward again after the coronavirus and through the coronavirus as a nation. I mean, we've talked about this, but sports are such a part of the American culture and the American psyche that they remember so many moments in their lives around what was happening in sports. Right? We all remember George W. Bush throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium after 9/11. I mean, I remember Wide Right. I remember all of these things. Yankees winning the World Series in '09 and me going to the World Series parade. Americans love sports. They love being able to be together, but they also love what it means. It gives us things to get away from, to think about other than what's going on in our lives. It's a great escape. So being able to bring sports back is just such a huge part of America's culture. And I applaud that every major league sports outlet that is working hard to get not only their athletes back, but to get back to reopening, to get America moving forward. I mean, sports they're so culturally important in the United States. And I really think that it is a big part of what we're going to see as people start to feel like they can get back to their lives again.
We're talking to Erin Perrine. She works in the White House. She's taken the time to come on with us. You know this because I follow you on Twitter. You follow me on Twitter. I've got a 12, a 9, and a 5-year-old. I am fired up about how important it is for kids to be back in school this fall, and frankly, how important it is for colleges to be back open as well. How important is that same sense of normalcy for so many tens of millions of other parents out there to be able to have their kids back in school this fall?
There are so many things that make it so critically important for students to get back in the classroom in the fall. President Trump is obviously a huge advocate and proponent of being able to get kids back into school and schools to reopen safely. And it's about the interaction. It's, even if you just look at it at the educational standpoint, you see a drop in students learning when they are distanced, when they are not together. There's the social aspect of it. It's so important for kids developmentally, and especially in college age, too, to be able to have those social interactions, to be able to be around other people, and let alone all the other factors that go into this. When we talk about parents being able to get back to work, that, if you're a single mother and your kid's at home, how are you going to be able to get back to work if you can't send your kid to school during the day? And a lot of kids, especially in lower income communities, you see that they get breakfast and lunch at their school. There are so many different reasons: mental health, education, family, home, those things. There's so many things that go into kids being able to get back physically in the classroom, and the American Academy of Pediatrics agrees on the necessity to get children back into a classroom setting. And there are so many reasons, and it's just so critically important that now, while we're standing in July, these school districts, they start working with their localities and their states to be able to get kids back in the classroom. Is so important.
We're talking to Erin Perrine. She's the director of press communications in the White House with so many different things going on. You just hit on something that I don't believe is getting enough attention, and I keep hammering it home. For obviously, I want the return of sports, but I want the return of normalcy in general. 67,000 pediatricians, the AAP, as you just referenced them, came out. These are doctors, obviously, who treat children and said kids need to be back in the classroom this fall. Why did they say that? Because the risk factors to children are very limited, and if we don't get them back, all those different reasons you just laid out become even more glaring. This is not a partisan issue to me. 67,000 pediatricians. I'm sure a lot of them are Democrats, a lot of them are Republicans, a lot of them are independent, probably a lot of them are just frustrated parents like you and me and many people out there listening to us. This is not a difficult situation, right?
It's not a difficult situation. We have the abilities in now. And when the CARES Act, which was part of the pandemic relief package, was put through, there was money allocated to schools in that funding. And schools are using part of that funding to begin to set protocols and procedures and set up how they need to safely reopen. There are resources available to these school districts that they are utilizing to be able to get reopened. It's so critically important, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue, but everything, unfortunately, is a partisan issue at this point when it comes to President Trump being at the helm, because Democrats come from a place of no instead of a place of what do we need to do to move the country forward. President Trump wants to see life begin to reopen. He wants to see that he's seeing the mortality rate go down. You're seeing that as people begin to interact again, yes, testing is increasing and mortality is coming down. Those are great things, but children specifically have a less propensity that we're seeing of carrying the disease, of getting sick from the disease. And so getting them back into that classroom setting is so vital for so many reasons. You know, we talked about lunches, we talked about education, we talked about kids falling behind, but also kids who are in unsafe homes. How are you going to be able to talk about child abuse or removing a kid from an unsafe situation if they aren't at school for people to be able to have the conversations that need to be had? It's really important. And first and foremost, moms, dads, and kids know they need to be back in the classroom in the fall.
We're talking to Erin Perrine. What's your life like right now? Like, I mean, it's always crazy, I imagine, working in the White House. I don't know. I mean, I've gotten to tour the White House over the years, and I imagine that it's still sort of a majestic feeling to be involved in that process on a day-to-day basis. But how many years do you feel like you've lived since March?
You know, it's really funny. I feel like it's been an absolute lifetime, but, you know, there was more distancing, there was more remote work, but now we're getting back into the swing of things. I mean, as I told you, I'm standing in an airport right now, getting ready to fly up to New Hampshire for our rally on Saturday. You know, it's good to slowly get back to normalcy. It's been a few months, but it's good to start feeling like we're back doing things again. And that's what we want to be doing. We want to be out there. We want to be talking to the American people about what's actually going on in this country and the work that President Trump's doing to get us through the coronavirus. So it's been a wild ride since March, to put it lightly, but it has been for every American, no matter who they are or where they live. Everybody's had to experience this in different ways. I'm just lucky I get to, you know, be able to experience it when I'm working remotely with my husband and my dog.
Were you in South Dakota for the July 3rd speech?
I was not in South Dakota for that speech. I was at the White House on the 4th for that speech.
All right, so that speech I thought was really, really great, and I don't care what political affiliation you have, right, out there listening to me right now in general. The idea that some people want to tear down Mount Rushmore, or I saw the New York Times had an editorial where they were like, "Hey, we need to tear down the Jefferson Memorial." I mean, this is lunacy, right? Like, so I liked the idea that Trump chose to use Mount Rushmore, which is to me a very quintessentially American location, as a way to expound upon American exceptionalism and greatness. Like, I don't understand how that's remotely controversial.
Well, it doesn't matter what President Trump does. If he stands in front of a church or he stands in front of a national monument, the media is going to get the vapors and go up in arms about how this president is handling absolutely anything in this country.
Yeah.
He stood in front of an iconic monument and gave an absolutely patriotic, beautiful speech. And then the New York Times, in the immediate breath after, called it dark and divisive. The only thing that was dark and divisive was their reporting. The media bias and spin that we see in this country is unbelievable. And I'm even still surprised to this day. Right? I've been doing this for a while now to see how they react to things that the president says. There was like one reporter who tried to do a breakdown of all the bad things the president said, and every line they pulled from the speech was about America. He talked about our founding and our founders. He talked about those who stood up in the face of tyranny to establish the freest nation the world has ever known. And that's dark and divisive? What is light and happy to these people? I'm just so confused on what they actually see as what the president said and what was actually said, because it's a weird paradox we live in. But that speech was so beautiful with the backdrop of Mount Rushmore and the president standing there in such a presidential moment, addressing our nation and saying that those who want to erase our history will not be able to, because this is who we are as a nation. People who get to say things like this is dark and divisive, or they try and slander and slam the president for the Mount Rushmore speech, should be thanking him, because he stands up for the Constitution in this country, which is the reason that they get to stand there and even say those things. You live in a different country, you live anywhere else, you can live in a number of different countries in the world, you would never be able to talk like that. But because of the Constitution, what those founders did for this nation to establish it in a free and tranquil society, that's exactly why they get to do what they get to do against this president, even as he stands there and defends their right to do it.
We're talking to Erin Perrine. She's with the Trump White House, and she's been on before. She's also a big Bills fan. College football, to me, coming back is a big deal. I know you are an NFL fan. It seems to me that the people who are anti-return to normalcy in sports, they've acknowledged now that the NFL is going to be back in some form or fashion. Major League Baseball, the NBA, MLS, and NHL all are going to be back, I believe, sooner rather than later, and they've moved on to college football. We talked earlier about the importance of kids being back in elementary school, K through 12 education. How important is it for college kids to be back in college?
Oh, it's hugely important. And I am a college football fan as well. Don't get me wrong. My husband went to the University of Wisconsin, so I'm a Badger by marriage, but I still root for my University of Connecticut football team. I remember the golden era when we actually made a BCS bowl. God bless the BCS. Rest in peace with that. But, you know, I am a college football fan myself. But it's hugely important. College is such a critical development age for young adults in this country. They get to interact and have a myriad of ideas and choose their path forward in their education for the first time in their lives. And there's such a large amount of brain development that actually goes on during those critical college years for people. Not only the social aspects, not only the educational aspects, but as a whole, it is important for college campuses to begin to safely reopen and to be able to do the work now so that they can have a fall semester on campus. There's no reason that people shouldn't be stepping up to say, we will do this and we will make sure we can get kids back into the classroom, because I mean, for all of those reasons we've talked about and the ability to get ahead in this country, colleges being open is going to be such a critical part of that. And we don't want to see this generation of Americans who are growing up not have the opportunity because they got less of an opportunity because of the coronavirus. We can do the work now to safely reopen.
Erin, I hate to tell it to you, but I think the Patriots are going to find a way to win the AFC East again.
No, don't say that.
I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. Good luck up in New Hampshire. We look forward to talking to you again, and thanks for dropping by.
Thanks for having me, Clay. It was good to talk to you.
Always good. That's Erin Perrine. Let me bring in Eddie Garcia, get the latest in the world of sports.